This happened years ago when I was 19. I'm now in my mid-20s. I still remember this very clearly because of how creeped out I was. Back then, I was living 600 plus miles away from my parents in a different state. Even though there was a distance, my mom and I still talked on the phone at least twice a week. And we were still really close, so when we found out her cancer was back, I didn't think twice about dropping everything to drive down to see her. A plane ticket would be too expensive, and I had a 10-year-old Toyota that might have been a bit beat up but still got me from one place to another cheaply and quietly. My parents weren't thrilled at the idea of me driving the 11 hours by myself, but my mind was made up, so they offered me a deal. I would stop at a rest stop every 2 to 3 hours and stretch my legs and call them, and in exchange for this courtesy, they would pay for my gas. If I didn't call within the 3-hour window though, they would assume I'd been in an accident and call me repeatedly, interrupting the audiobook podcasts they knew I would be playing. I accepted the deal, and that's why I was at this particular rest stop at 2:45 a.m. This was actually one of the nicer stops, well lit, multiple vending machines that didn't have huge cages around them. The payphone wasn't broken, and it looked clean. There were a couple cars there with people sleeping in them. I still had 15 minutes before I had to check in with my parents. I got out of my car and stretched and then almost jumped out of my skin when I heard a man's voice right behind me. "Miss, can I ask you for a favor?" I turned around, and he's leaning against my car. I have no idea how he got there so fast. I didn't see him when I parked, but there he was, uncomfortably close to me. He looked like he's in his 40s. He didn't look dirty or twitchy. He was too close, but his body language didn't scream threatening. And even though I was 19 years old, barely over 5 feet, and at that point in my life 110 pounds soaking wet, and even though I had already binged a lot of true crime media and knew the dangers of a girl my age alone at night with an out-of-state license plate, my dumbass asked what he needs. He told me that he accidentally locked his keys and his phone in his truck, and could he just borrow my phone real quick to call his friend? It will just take a second and it would really help him out. And I almost handed him my phone. I was reaching into my pocket to hand it to him with a Pollyanna no problem. And then I actually looked at his face. Like I said, this rest stop was surprisingly well lit, and this guy looked really normal, except for his eyes. He had dead shark eyes. You know what I'm talking about. It's the Ted Bundy, Dick Cheney actress in a Glade commercial who is trying to convince us she's in love with a dumbass who doesn't know how air fresheners work eyes. They're smiling, but the eyes are vacant and creepy and staring way too hard. I got that feeling, that runaway feeling. I knew immediately not to hand this guy my only way to call for help, so I put on my best customer service smile and told him, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry, but I don't have a charger and I need to save all my battery for the tracking app my parents have on my phone. And I need that juice to call my parents, which I actually have to do right now, but good luck." And I turned and walked about 20 feet away, and he doesn't leave. He was still just leaning against my car, watching me, and now I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to leave him alone with my car, because he creeped me out and he has serial killer face, so going to the bathroom is out. But I also wanted to get away from him, prove I'm not going to help and maybe he'll leave. I could technically get into the car, but I would have to get really close to him unless I crawled over my passenger side seat, and he's not moving. So I did the first thing that popped to mind. I called my dad, and my dad, for the first time that night, didn't pick up the phone. When I heard his voicemail, I glanced back. The guy still hadn't moved. He's still just staring at me. So I faked a phone conversation with my dad. I angled my body so that the guy couldn't see that I had hung up the phone and loudly said that I should be home in about 30 minutes. I mentioned exactly where I was and reassured the fake caller that this was a good rest stop with plenty of lighting and a couple visible security cameras. The guy still hadn't moved, and I'm running out of steam on this fake conversation. In the years since, I've thought of a lot of things I could have said while pretending to talk to my dad, but in that moment I was beginning to seriously freak out and my mind went blank. So I hung up and didn't know what to do. I had hoped the fake phone call would scare him off, but he was still leaning against my car. I stalled for another couple of minutes. I bought cookies from the vending machine. I walked around a little. At this point, he's been leaning against my car staring at me for at least 10 minutes. I honestly debated waking up one of the men sleeping in their parked cars and asking for help, and just the thought of having to wake someone up to help me get into my own goddamn car annoyed me enough that I stopped stalling and headed back to my car. I decided that unless he touched me, I'm just going to pretend he isn't there. He waited until I was unlocking my car door before he started talking to me again. He told me again that he really needs to use my phone. He's stranded here unless he can call his friend to bring the spare keys. He's not angry or begging. His voice sounds weirdly friendly, but he'd been creepily watching me for way too long while blocking my exit so I'm not falling for it. I almost pointed out the working payphone, just in case I'm wrong about this and I was being an ass to a guy who needs help. But then he leaned forward as I was getting in and I lost all nerve and slammed and locked the door as fast as possible. He didn't move until I started the car and put it in reverse, and then he finally stepped back and let me pull out. I didn't even have my seatbelt on. I was so focused on getting away from him. And then halfway out of the rest stop, my mom called me. My mom, who would freak out if I don't pick up and who was already sick, and I needed to put on my seatbelt. I could still see him in my mirror. He was standing right next to where I was parked with his back to me. He was far enough away that I felt okay parking again to answer the phone, but I kept my engine running and I kept watching him. I don't want my mom to worry, so I told her everything is fine, where I am, my ETA. Now that I was in my locked car away from him, I was beginning to feel like I had overreacted. She scolds me about speeding, and I tune her out because the guy is moving now. As my mom lectures me about road safety, I watch the guy cross to a truck, unlock the door and get in. The keys being locked and no longer seemed to be an issue for him. I watched the truck head back out to the freeway and drive out of sight. I had to pretend to be fine to not upset my mom. I didn't get back onto the road for another 20 minutes, and when I did, I didn't speed. I didn't want to see that truck. I found out years later that the closest city to that rest stop has a major problem with sex trafficking, and that girls who look like they don't live nearby, or maybe look like they are living out of their cars, tend to be targets. I don't know if that was what was happening, or if he was just trying to scare me into handing over my phone. Even if it's not true, creepy guy at the rest stop, what's not meat? Okay, so let me start this off with a little bit of context. I live in Trinidad, so I might use some un-American terminology in this. I'm a girl, and I was 15 when I was in 11th grade because I'd skipped a year in primary school, so I was a year younger than most of the other kids in the class. When I was in that grade, I was not exactly the most healthy or athletic person, but I genuinely enjoyed PE class and I liked to run around in the gym and play games and such. So when I had to pick courses for semester 1 of grade 11, I made sure to pick PE just like I had done for grades 9 and 10. I was a little shocked when I got to the first day of PE and found out that our old PE teacher had gone back to Canada because his work term here was over. He had been with my school for 4 years, so it was understandable when someone told me that he hadn't gotten fired. We meet our new physical education teacher. He looks to be around 30-something, with light skin, blue eyes, and blonde hair that was shaved on the sides and styled but short on top. A lot of the girls immediately liked him and said he was handsome, but I didn't see it because I wasn't interested in boys or men. This PE teacher liked to take us on walks and runs, so we would leave school at lunchtime in a bus and come back as school was ending since PE was last period. One time we went to a place that was known for its howler monkeys. It was a paved path through a forest, and it went up and around a hill. We started walking, PE teacher in the back. When we reached as far as we could go in the time that we had, we turned around and started going back down the trail. I was slow and not very fit, so I was in the back with my teacher. The whole way down, we were talking about what we knew about the howler monkeys and animals in general. I was an animal nerd growing up, so I had a bit of things to talk about. I was so happy to get to talk to an adult and have them take me seriously. I know it's kind of dumb, but I am the oldest grandchild to a very traditional Chinese grandfather, and I'm a girl, not a son like he wanted. He pushed me hard to get good grades and never really wanted to talk to me, and my parents were always working, so I just wanted a grown-up to actually listen to what I had to say. On the bus ride back, I sat in the front of the bus so we could continue talking. I only got more attached to him when he let me talk his ear off about whatever I was obsessed with at the time, which was usually some comic book, TV show, or movie. I think at the time it was either Transformers or Pokemon. But whatever it was, he let me actually talk about it. I didn't see anything wrong with that at the time. I was always in the back of the group during our walks, and so was he. I figured we might as well chat. He liked to touch my hair sometimes, but I was used to that because my hair was so long it went past my butt. After a few days of just walking and going places to do jogs, we played field hockey. We did it with 2 teams, and our teacher playing is just someone who would pick teams as he played, so he was kind of like a third team all on his own. He would help the losing team score points, and I don't think it was a coincidence that the losing team was mine, seeing how non-athletic I am. It was during this game that other girls started to see something wrong with the way our teacher played. He would pat girls on their butts with his hockey stick in order to get them to jump or get startled, leaving the ball open for him to steal. The girls later were complaining that what he was doing was gross and wrong, but I said that I didn't see anything wrong with it. It took me some time to realize that he really shouldn't have been doing that, the realization coming when he started to use his hand to pinch the girls' butts instead of tapping them with the hockey stick. Next thing I knew, the dude was fired. He didn't quit, he was fired. One of the girls must have told the principal or something, but I know that it wasn't B. I was actually so upset when he wasn't there anymore, and looking back on that and knowing that I felt that way makes me feel disgusting. So, to my 11th grade PE teacher, please, let's not meet again. I'm not the best storyteller, so bear with me. I was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina, and still live on the east side. There is a local public park near my parents' house called McAlpine Creek, which is mainly a large cross-country trail stretching miles across East Charlotte. The park is enveloped by hundreds of acres of dense forest and undeveloped land that is discreetly amidst busy streets and highways. There is a myth, folktale about a devil church or Satan church deep within the park. There are a few videos on YouTube and other forum posts around the web of locals attempting to approach it. A simple Google search and you'll find them. In my senior year of high school, scouring the internet about this supposed church, I had somehow found a somewhat vague description of the location from someone who had attempted to go down the roads deep within the park to find it. My girlfriend at the time and I one Friday night decided to try and find the road that leads to the church. We drove down the winding roads behind a CarMax that borders the dense woods of the park, where there is a small neighborhood of sorts. I think I had gotten 2 street names that were in close proximity to the spot. Cautiously driving down these quiet and dark roads, we had found a seemingly abandoned dirt track offshooting from the paved road. Keep in mind there are almost no streetlights anywhere. While driving for about 2 or 3 minutes, there had been a pickup truck in front of us, maybe 50 feet or so. Upon seeing the dirt track and our interests piqued, we stopped the car to discuss what we wanted to do. We began to slowly pull onto the dirt track. Simultaneously, the pickup truck ahead of us abruptly stopped and sat in place. We noticed this, having fully pulled into the dirt road at this point, and immediately stopped and stood frozen in panic. The driver of the truck quickly put his or her car in reverse. We could see the rear reverse lights turn on and began to immediately back up towards us. I threw my car in reverse in panic and attempted to turn back the way we had come. I was able to get turned around and back into drive fairly quickly. In reverse, the driver of the truck was accelerating very quickly towards us. I floored the gas of my Nissan Altima. The truck driver followed us for a few seconds and then stopped. We never looked back. We never found the supposed church, but this happening scared the hell out of us, and I've never considered attempting to go back. Maybe they each deserve their own post. But anyway, Here is a list of every event that happened to me that I still cannot explain. Grandma's ghost visits to announce her death. My memories of this are a bit fuzzy because I was only 4. I was playing in the backyard with my second cousin while my mom watched us. Suddenly she looked alarmed, saying something like, "Kids, stay here, someone's in the house." I remember that this scared me. Of course we didn't listen, and we followed my mom in the house. No one there, but there was some noise upstairs. So we rushed there just in time to see a hanged picture get thrown on the floor. I remember the glass shards everywhere. My mom was very confused and said she had seen my grandma in the window. That very night we got the call confirming that she had died. The ghostly arm, my scariest encounter by far. I must have been 9 or 10 at the time. My friend Mike invited me to his place, and we were just chatting with a girl on MSN until I saw something from the corner of my eye. There was a black, translucent arm going through the wall. I was too shocked to say anything. My friend, somewhat unfazed, just said, "Oh, you see the arm too." Apparently he had been seeing stuff like that a lot. To this day I still cannot explain this rationally. Glove disappears and reappears exactly where it was. I came back to my dorm room from the store. It was during the winter. I put my coat and gloves on the bed. I opened my closet door to put away my things, only to see that one of my gloves is missing. I thoroughly searched my tiny room. Nothing to be found, until from the corner of my eye I see something black flash by, and here was the lost glove, exactly where it originally was. Grandpa warns me he is going to die. This one might be a coincidence. I knew my grandpa had been in the hospital for a while and was not doing well, severe head trauma. Anyway, I saw him in a dream and he kept it short as he always did. He said, "I'm going now." He was indeed gone that very day. Something punched me. I'm not sure about this one. I was working outside all by myself in a remote swamp area surrounded by fields. I definitively felt something hit me in the back, hard. My first thought was that someone had arrived and had thrown something like an apple or a baseball in my direction. But no, nothing on the ground. No one to be seen. Maybe a bird that hit me and flew away. Who knows? Garbage bin moves by itself, seemingly a classic poltergeist. In 2 instances, the lid of my trash can with the swing top started to flip around super fast like someone punched it, and another time it flipped over as if someone kicked it. Each time it was in my direct field of vision, so I know it's not a rat getting inside or anything.